Hey everyone! So we've been talking a little bit about domain and range. So we're going to go ahead and go into the notation of domain and range. So I've labeled right here in my notebook, domain and range. We're going to be going over set notation and algebraic inequality. So for me, it's going to be on page 4. But for you all, it may be a little different depending on how many notes you've taken. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, with set notation, we always know it's set notation because of these curly braces. So in my set notation, it's going to look like this. So I'm going to have an X, I'm going to have a vertical line, and some kind of inequality. So the way I would say this is, if I'm talking about my domain, then this is going to be X. But if I'm talking about my range, then it's going to be Y. And we would say for all. So for all X. And this vertical line right here, that is such that. So you know, math has its own language. So we would say for all X such that, and we're going to have an inequality here. So this inequality can look like, I know you guys have seen something like X greater than 2, or -4 less than or equal to X less than 1. So you're going to see something in that inequality. Something like that there for that inequality. Now for the algebraic inequality, that we can actually get that out of the inequality part of our set notation. So this is just going to be an inequality, the inequality of our graph. So whether it's X greater than 2 or -4 less than X less than 1, that is going to be the way we write it in algebraic inequality. So let's go over some examples of how to write each of them. So the first one we're going to do, and feel free to pause and try it yourself and see what you get. That way when you start it, we can see what our answers look like. So for the first one, I'm going to take it kind of slow just to make sure we all understand how to get the domain and the range. And then for the others, we'll go by it pretty quick. Okay, so for my domain, I'm going to see where my graph starts and where my graph stops. So I always start on the negative side. So I'm going to move my domain focusing on my x-axis and see where my graph starts. It is right here at 3. So then I'm going to move my positive side and see where it stops, and that's right here at 2. So my domain is going to be between -3 and 2. So now that I know that, over here in my set notation, and remember, my set notation is going to look like this. So my set notation for my domain, I'm going to put my curly braces, and I'm going to write X, because I'm with my domain, for all X such that, and I have 2 points. So since I have 2 points right away, I can write my inequality like this. So all I have to fill in is my starting point, my end point, and if these are equal to or not. So I said my starting point was at -3, and my end point is at 2. Since at -3, that's an open circle, that stays less than. And over here on my 2, that's a closed circle, so that's going to be less than or equal to. And that's the set notation for my domain. I'm going to do the same thing with my range. So I'm going to start from the negative and see where my graph starts. And it's right here at -4. I'm going to move up on my positive side and see where it ends. And it ends right here at 5. So all along my y-axis, my range is going to be from -4 to 5. So then I'm going to write y such that, and again, it's between 2 points, my range. So I'm going to write my inequality. And then I'm going to fill in where it starts, which is on my negative side at -4, up to my 5 on my y-axis. And then down here at the -4, that's a closed circle. So it's -4 less than or equal to y. Up here at my 5, this is an open circle, so that stays less than. Okay, so that's how we get set notation. And remember, our algebraic inequality, that's going to come from our set notation. So over here, for my domain, you can figure it out again, or since we have it up here, I'm just going to rewrite it. And I can see that it is from -3 all the way here to 2. So -3 all the way to 2. And same with my range. It's going to be from -4 less than or equal to y less than, and if I follow my range all the way up, it's going to take me to 5. So that's how I write set notation and algebraic inequality. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the next one. Feel free to pause the video, try it by yourself, see what you get, and see if our answers match up. Okay, so for my domain, this time I'm going to start with my algebraic inequality. So remember, that's just the inequality part. So for my domain, remember, I'm going to focus on my x-axis. So I'm going to start on my negative side and work over to my positive. So on my negative side, I see my graph starts at -3 and it goes on forever, right? Because this arrow on our graph tells us it goes forever. So in that case, I'm going to write that for my domain, my x values will be greater than -3. So x is greater than -3. And just to make sure it's greater than, I have an open circle, so it checks out. So for my range, I'm going to do the same thing, but start on my y-axis down on the negative side. As I scan my y-axis going up, I see my graph starts at -2. And again, if I follow it up, I see it just keeps on going to forever. So similar to our domain, our range is going to be our y values greater than -2. And I see at -2, I have an open circle, so I'm correct with just greater than. So let's go ahead and write it in our set notation. So for our set notation, remember, when we're talking about sets, we always have curly braces. We start for all x, such that, and we can just take what's here in our inequality, or we can figure it out again, which that's just fine. But since I already have it up here, I'm going to go ahead and copy it in. X greater than -3, and that's it for the domain. For my range, I write down my curly braces, y greater than -2. Okay, so for my last example, go ahead and pause this one if you'd like. Give it a try, see what you get when you come back. Okay, so we're starting with set notation. So first, I'm going to write my curly braces, and I'll do that down. Oh, well, I need that there. Okay. So looking at my domain, right? I'm looking on my x-axis, and I see both sides have the arrow going forever. So that means that all of my x-axis is covered. The domain is completely covering all of the x-axis. So that means that I write this. So this is a special case. I'm going to write for all x such that x belongs to all real numbers. So that means I have no beginning, it has no end. It just keeps on covering all of my x-axis forever, forever, to the left and to the right. So for my range, that's a little different. So I'm going to write my curly braces, my for all y's such that. And I see as I scan from the bottom up, I'm going to start from -2 and keep on going forever. So I'm going to say my y is greater than or equal to -2. Now since this is a solid line, that's another way of saying a closed circle. So that's why this one is greater than and equal to. So for my algebraic inequality, I'm just going to go ahead and steal what's in here. And I'm going to say x belongs to all real numbers. And for my range, y is greater than -2. So go ahead and see what you think. Let us know if you have any questions at all.